Good morning. Thank you, Colleen, for your kind introduction. I should do one qualifier because my adult children laugh at the idea of thinking of me as a rock star, because they tell you my taste in music is completely different, so the idea of being in any shape, form, or whatever a rock star is not entirely accurate. I am involved in MS research in many levels, and when I was asked to give this talk, Mary said, well, what would your title be? And I thought, well, let's think of something different. And I came up with the title, Frontiers in MS Research. I said that sort of glibly a couple of months ago. And then when I came to put the talk together, I realized, wow, this is a really, really big topic, the frontiers in MS research, because they are huge, and they go off in many different directions. So I had to do a bit of reading to catch up on some of the aspects of MS research that I don't personally work in. And I meant to bring down, I forgot a couple of things. I forgot my laser pointer, so I'm going to have to try and point with a finger at things if I have to do that. And I meant to bring down a text. This is McAlpine's 4th edition. It's called Multiple Sclerosis, and it's kind of the Bible for clinicians, researchers that work in MS. And if I could give you some indication, it's my sort of bedside reading, it sends me to sleep very quickly every night. The book of size, just to give you some indication of the knowledge in MS, I'll just show you what I think.
It is in size a book of, it's about that thick, and it's approximately about that size. So, I mean, the thickness gives you an idea of the number of pages. It is a vast, vast tome.
So we know a huge amount about MS, but as you're all very aware, we don't know everything about MS. We still don't know the cause of MS, we still don't know the cure for MS, but the science, I'm sure this is going to happen, Mary. The science of MS is advancing, I would say, it's fair to say, on a daily basis. These microphones, I hate them. Incrementally, but not with major breakthroughs every day. That's not the way that science works. So, in putting the talk together, I tried to include some of the most current and modern parts of research that we and others are involved in. And you're going to find it quite challenging because it's highly technical, it's very sophisticated, but what I want to do is to try and present it to the level that you will at least grasp something of. I think it's fair to say that you're not going to get everything, but just get an idea of the level of the endeavor, and as I say, the sophistication of the research that hopefully is going to come up with better treatments and even a cure. So in trying to think of divide up what I consider to be the frontiers of MS research, here they are, and I'm going to address each of them some at a greater level than others. I started out by saying that we don't know the cause of MS, and that is true, despite the fact that the disease has been described for well over 200 years. The cause has remained elusive. But we've got a better idea now, I think, of what the actual etiology, as it were, of MS might be. And it's probably not a single factor. It's probably not a single virus that you're exposed to in early life, or the genes that you inherit from your parents who just happen to be of Northern European origin, or Serbian origin, right? I can say that here. I don't know if any of you are of Serbian origin. I thought I could tell a few Croatian jokes, but no, I'll avoid those too. Anyway, it's not just your genes, it's not infections that you inherit, it's not factors that how much vitamin D you took as a child, or whether you smoked or not. It's a combination of all of these factors. So it's what's called a multifactorial disease. And all of these factors come together and either put you at risk for developing MS or actually cause MS. The question, I'll talk about genetics in a little bit more shortly. The question of infections is an important one because a number of viruses have been put forward over the years as being the causative agents, and many of these have been dismissed. For example, the distemper virus in dogs. The most current thought is that the Epstein-Barr virus, the mononucleosis virus, is very likely the most common link between early exposure, early development of mononucleosis and the later development of MS. There is no vaccine for EBV. an Australian neurologist, a very smart guy, said, well, you know, the other thing is, of course, to tell teenagers to stop kissing. And he said, if you've success at that, tell us how to do it, because that would be an uphill challenge indeed. So we know that that's spread very easily. So it's a highly contagious, very common virus. And I think the figure is something like 100% of people with MS had mononucleosis. But it doesn't always work out. There are some people with mononucleosis who don't get MS. There is a tight association, but it's not the cause. It's associated, likely associated with, in a very, very complicated fashion. It's not just a question of the virus remaining latent in your bodies and then becoming apparent at a later time point. It's very much involved with the immune system at, as I said, a very complicated level. So there are other important factors. There's no doubt that vitamin D for people in the northern climes, the northern states, Scandinavia, northern Europe, people who are, and I'll show you a slide shortly, who are exposed to less sunlight and are not taking vitamin D as a supplement, they're at greater risk. There is no doubt about that. Smoking is not good in any respect. For those of you who don't have MS, but might be related to people with MS, I would stop smoking this morning. Get rid of it. Terrible habit. I will talk about CCSDI, a couple of slides about that. Therapies, I'll talk about therapies with a slide in shortly. Symptomatic treatments, one of the big developments, I'll call it a frontier in MS treatments in the last year has been the availability of a drug called Ampera, which helps muscle strength. This is a drug that what it does is it blocks potassium channels. It's a slow-release medication. If you do this, you allow the nerve fibers that don't have a myelin sheath to conduct better. It works in about a third of MS patients, and what it does is it improves muscle strength slightly. It makes you walk a bit quicker. But a woman at work, a colleague of mine who takes it, her whole point in taking this was simply it helps her to get out of the house quicker in the morning. And that's an improvement in quality of life. So for a third of MS patients it might be useful, but it's certainly not a cure. You don't get up out of a wheelchair and run 100 yards. You can do things a bit quicker. And then finally, and this is what I'm involved in, and this is a frontier for sure, and that is this question of people who've had chronic disease for years and years and years, and have areas of demyelination in the brain and spinal cord. Can you repair those with the notion that by repairing them, you'd improve function and even restore function? And that's undoubtedly a major frontier in MS research. Now, the whole point that I said about all of these factors, these predisposing factors in MS, is that they can come together to produce, as you see in the middle of these three circles, MS. But there are things in the environment, there are things that you inherit potentially, called epigenetic events. And then there are genetic predispositions that all have to come together to give you the middle picture in MS. I talked about the environment. I told you that smoking wasn't good. Sun exposure is good in terms of vitamin D. There are genes that you can inherit, especially those of us who come from Northern Europe, as you can tell. No, I'm not from Wisconsin. I'm beginning to sound a bit like I'm from Wisconsin. I've been here a long time. But, and I love living in Wisconsin, but I'm not a true bred badger. But I come from Scotland. There's a high incidence of the disease in Scotland also. The genes that are involved are becoming more and more evident. People are working and trying to identify the susceptibility genes. There are 2 or 3 that are quite clearly connected